Thank you, Borough President. And I just want to talk personally about what Memorial Day means growing up in Queens. And I really owe it to my mom, who raised us, 4 kids, really essentially alone. And I just want to bring up a few things, personal observations. One is, my mom, again, came from the greatest generation as my dad. World War II the country was united, obviously, and they all pulled together. And being a baby boomer myself, and I know there was a few in the crowd here, I recognize them. We were all proud of our fathers and mothers who gave everything to help pull this country through one of the most horrific wars in the world that we've ever experienced. But my mom had a scrapbook in World War II that she had all pictures and newspaper clippings, very thick, and I would pull it out from time to time and look through it. And I learned a lot, not only in the history classes in school. I did see a picture, and it's a picture that I blew up. It's a very small picture that she had in the album of Edward Hoyt. He was 19 years old, and she had a picture, it was mounted, and she had Edward Hoyt killed on the Jacob Jones, Cape May, New Jersey. And we weren't taught that the U.S. was attacked other than a territory in Hawaii, Pearl Harbor. We weren't taught that we had soldiers and sailors that were killed right off the coast of New Jersey. And he was 19 years old. He lived above my mom as she was growing up. And 19 years old, he enlisted right before Pearl Harbor, served on a World War I destroyer called the Jacob Jones, USS Jacob Jones. And I did research, somehow that photo resonated with me. I just couldn't get it out of my mind. So when the internet came in the 90s, early 90s, I started research to Jacob Jones and Edward Hoyt. And then I found that they went through horrific times serving on a World War I destroyer in the North Atlantic during, again, a very stormy season. They got caught in so many storms and were adrift. And their job, though, the USS Jacob Jones, was to protect the shipping lanes so that we could supply Europe and we could supply our allies with the necessary materials. And they went out looking for U-boats that were patrolling the eastern seaboard. And on February 28th, his ship, the Jacob Jones, was torpedoed. But what happened after that is kind of responsible for me being alive today. And so he died just almost 10 years before I was born, but I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for his sacrifice, and I'll tell you why. In the days following, when he was lost, he was the only child of Mr. and Mrs. Hoyt, who lived in Queens, in Maspeth, like I said, right above my mother, and they loved their only child, Eddie, and so did the women in the neighborhood, by the way. That's what my mom said. My mom probably had a crush on him. She was 17, so right after he was lost and never found his body, she started on a mission. She tried to join the newly formed Women's Army Auxiliary Corps, but she was 17, and my grandmother wouldn't sign the papers because they were all in shock that such a beautiful young man was lost, and so many others at Pearl Harbor and so forth. So he was one of the first Queens casualties of the war. But my mother would go to bed at night hearing Mrs. Hoyt crying for months. She said it haunted her to the point where she had to do something. So she started to be a pen pal. There was a program where not-for-profits were doing work where you could